we're not the only ones. Ja Morant, according to reports, people within his inner circle are saying that the media and the NBA is out to get them and out to get Ja based on the suspension, which is far-fetched at best based on the suspension length and the fact that they're not even pointing to every single incident that we've seen over the last 12 to 15 months here. I've said, and Chad, I know you've said this as well, it's not just the media, it's the NBA vets. It's the current players in the league that are not pushing back on this because they see the troubling aspects and the recurring issues that have taken place here on the path that he's on. Kevin Garnett is the most recent one. He joined, he was with Tony Allen, former Grizzlies player, on KG Certified, where he just straight up says you do not get to pick and choose when you want to be a professional young fella. This is Garnett talking about Ja Morant. He's got to get the right people around him. Tony Allen is chiming in on this. I know that sounds cliche, but more so than anything, you need some cats around you that's going to let you know when you're wrong and when you're bogus. And Garnett added, you've got to do better. You've got to put yourself around better to do better. And I'm not certain that he knows the crew around him is affecting certain aspects of where he is right now, which is suspended for 25 games, the second suspension of his young NBA career. But, Chad, everyone has tried to reach out. When I say everyone, I'm using that, tongue-in-cheek, but it's a lot of the well-known veterans across the league have said they're here if he wants to chat. Some have said they've reached out but haven't heard back. Not even NBA veterans, but Pac-Man Jones has reached out but has not heard back from Ja Morant. And he's not obligated to return a phone call or to take advice from people that have also screwed up. But at some point, you've got to hear the advice that is echoing and the reverb from the NBA and everyone involved here. And I'm not sure he does. We'll find out because he's now released two different statements. The first one apparently written by ChatGPT. If you want to Google the apology, it could have been you insert company name here. You wouldn't really know if he was an NBA player or not based on the apology. The more recent one, while a bit lengthier, does specifically, follow the tune of whatever song that Adam Silver was trying to write in the suspension. But it's no longer about words, it's about actions. And in what Kevin Garnett is saying and what Tony Allen is saying, they're talking about actions as well. And it's not just the actions of Ja Morant, it's the actions of those around him that are bringing him down, even though I understand from Ja's perspective, the same people that are being discussed here by Tony Allen are the same group that helped him get to where he is. And now they're being ridiculed as the group that's bringing him down. But it's evident they are, Chad.
Yeah, it's very easy to see the problem here. I don't think we've had a hard time on this show at all of identifying the problem. A big part of the problem is both the friends in the company that Ja Morant keeps and his family. But keep in mind, his mother and his father have both been pieces in really bad stories surrounding Ja Morant. And they've been a contributing factor to this. So it's easier said than done. I think it's easy for Kevin Garnett to identify this problem, or Tony Allen, or anyone else. Easy for us to identify the problem. I am somewhat sympathetic to someone who maybe only knows these friends and clearly only knows this family and his parents involved, to say, hey, ditch them. Stop communicating with them. Get them out of your life. It's what he needs to do. It's what would be best for him as an individual. I'm not saying forever, but especially for right now until he can make better decisions. He needs better people around him that can help him make better decisions until he's on firm footing, and I'm talking about Ja Morant, to be able to make those good decisions for himself. So it's easy for us to say that. I do think it is difficult for one to just say, hey, you're no longer my friend because X, X, and Y have happened when you've been around me and you were a big part of that, and I can't have that anymore. So long. See you later. You're not in my crew anymore. That's difficult for someone to do.
Well, let's also point out, like, the most recent issue that Silver has had is this Instagram Live video. The guy that was on Instagram Live is filming and actually turns back to Ja and notices he's flashing a weapon and then immediately takes the camera away. So it's not all about the crew around him.
Yeah, that guy was actually being smarter than Morant.
Yeah. It was a protection aspect, even though I'm not saying everything's great, but it's also just on Ja. And he's up. It's his decision on who he wants to, hang with, take advice from, or not take advice from, take money from, not take money from, pay, not pay. Who cares? It's on Ja Morant now, Chad. But it's also on Silver to react based on whatever happens within these next 6 months accordingly. Let him back in if everything is laid out properly and he's followed this plan. They clearly want him back in the league. The Grizzlies clearly want him back in the league. As a fan of basketball, I want to watch him play. He's a great player. But it's up to him on if he's going to make it back and be the player that everyone expected him to be prior to all of this crap that went down.
Yeah, and if he distanced himself from some people around him, it would make it easier on him. But I do think that there's some truth in what you're saying about ultimately he could just make the decision not to put himself in bad situations and make horrific decisions.
I mean, if he doesn't pull out the gun
with or without his friends.
His friends on Instagram Live, that's fine. But if he doesn't pull out the gun, then there's no issue. That's the troubling aspect of it. And it happened less than 2 months after the suspension was handed down based on everything that went down in Denver at the strip club.
I'm going to make a bold prediction here. I don't think Ja Morant is ever Ja Morant again as a player. I think we've seen the best from him.
You're saying the superstar aspect.
Yeah, I think he's going to be good. I don't think his career's over. But I think he's going when he comes back, he's not going to be as good, and he's going to be viewed in a different light from here on out. I think the entire complexion of his career, this is not something that launches him to the next level as a player. I think he has plateaued as a player and will only go down from here. He's still going to be good. I'm not saying he's going to be a bad player overnight or anything, but I think we've seen the best from him with his potential.
Well, and you're saying part of the potential is just the marketing angle as well.
Yeah,
like the next level. And it's hard for Nike. It's hard for Power. Like if you're the big sponsors here that we're going to put a ton of money behind him, how do you do that now? We're discussing the NBA and the Grizzlies, but also just the clients involved behind the scenes.
Look, people like a redemption story too, so if he can come back from it and be as good or better, then sponsors will jump back on board.
Yeah.
But he's got to do that. I don't know that he's going to come back better. Maybe he comes back a little bit of the same and maybe worse, probably worse. But I don't think we ever see Ja Morant the way we've seen him before.
Chad, who did we see on ESPN today as we were watching and discussing the show here at 6th and Peabody?
Walking around 6th and Peabody, they've got two of the biggest TVs in all of Nashville. Look up on one of those gigantic TVs, and I see none other than Sage Steele hosting Outside the Lines on ESPN.
It's awkward because according to Brian Friedman, her attorney, she's in a lawsuit right now with the four-letter network over the fact that she believes that she was silenced, she was left off or kept off of certain programs after she joined a program with Jay Cutler back in 2021 where she discussed her vaccination status and the Obama administration. And since then, she's been entangled in drama behind the scenes in Connecticut. But also, we still see her on ESPN programming. But her attorney, Brian Friedman, said that she has recently turned down a $501,000 settlement from ESPN because they are trying to buy her silence on her ability to speak her mind whenever and however she feels necessary. But yet, while this story is out, she's hosting Outside the Lines, and it's got to be a strange dynamic within the hallways there, based on everything. But
Well,
props to Sage for doing it and turning it. 501 is also interesting. Not 500. 501,000 was the offer, according to Friedman, her attorney, to just end the lawsuit and buy her silence, according to what the attorney is saying.
Well, and I know that I think both her and her attorney have pointed out the hypocrisy of Disney and ESPN doing this, which she's suing them for First Amendment, protection and rights, while simultaneously Disney's fighting her on it, while suing Ron DeSantis in the state of Florida for what they're saying is violating their ability to have their own political opinion and to have their First Amendment rights. So they're fighting each end of this argument with different people at the same time. One other way that Disney and ESPN have tried to fight this is by eliminating any chance that she says she's still being held back with professional opportunity, because she's everywhere on the four-letter network. Every time I turn over there, she's on SportsCenter. She's on Outside the Lines. Ever since she sued them, she got a lot more airtime from that moment on. I have to remind myself at times when I see her, oh, yeah, she's involved in a lawsuit against her own company right now based on what she told Jay Cutler about COVID vaccination mandates. So it's a fascinating story. The fact she's not just going to take the $501,000 and continue on with the lawsuit tells me she's got a case, and she believes she's going to get more, and it's going to hurt Disney and ESPN even more than it does with that $501,000.
Well, not even mentioning the political aspect, just look inside the walls, the double standard of what certain people say on that network versus what others felt like they couldn't say. That's really, to me, what this comes down to. And there will be those behind the scenes that have never spoken up or that have been silenced that will commend her and thank her for turning down the offer of $500,000.